Welcome, everybody. We are here today with Father Riley Williams, pastor of Holy Name in Fall River, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the name of the school, Father? You have a school here too.
Also Holy Name School.
Also Holy Name
Yes,
School.
yeah.
Okay. I had the wonderful experience this morning of being at school mass. It was amazing. There were some virtue awards being handed out after. Just a really cool experience. The kids really seemed to be very reverent and respectful at mass, and it was a very wonderful experience to be there with all those young people.
We're so glad you could be with us for it.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Why don't you get us started? Tell us a little bit about your vocation journey. When did you feel called at first?
Well, I had the good fortune of going to a Catholic middle and high school, and it was when I was there that I was really able to see not simply the joy of following Christ, but through the example of the priests who were working there, the joy of following Christ in the priesthood. So it really just kind of sparked an interest for me. And then for my undergraduate degree, I went to Steubenville and was able to be part of a program there that allowed me to continue to discern while being in a normal college environment. So I very much appreciated that. Then at the end of my time there, I decided I was ready to make a little more formal commitment. And so I entered into major seminary and was sent by my bishop to the North American College in Rome.
Yeah, we were at Steubenville together.
Yes,
actually.
yeah.
Yeah, we were talking just before this, and we realized that we were there even in Austria.
Or the Austria program,
study abroad, which was the year that St. John Paul II died.
Right, for the Conclave 2005.
That's right, that's right. A pretty incredible experience. I remember going down for the Holy Week celebrations. At that time, Cardinal
I was there too. Yes, yeah.
was doing everything.
Yeah.
And, my mom's like, I saw you on EWTN. Where's your jacket?
Yes.
It was just a great experience to be there. So tell me a little bit about you're the director of ongoing faith formation for priests here in Fall River. That's a pretty huge job, I would assume. And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's a very important job, but thankfully, because I have a few other responsibilities, it doesn't take up a huge amount of my time. But it's really about realizing that, well, I guess my big line is always that just as our discipleship is dynamic, so is our priesthood. And simply saying, yes to the Lord's call isn't the end of our yes, that our yes is renewed and really made more profound. It really is deepened throughout our lives as priests. And so we have 2 events a year, one in the spring and one in the fall. Okay. And so it's not just for ongoing education, but also to give us a time of fraternity, and really some of the only times we come together as a full presbyterate of the diocese.
And how did your formation, your own formation as a priest, guide this work that you're doing now?
Well, I guess for myself and for any priest of my generation, we discerned and were ordained in a very different era than before. There's not as many priests around, and fraternity isn't that easy. Fraternity just doesn't naturally happen. And so both in seminary and then in my first years as a priest, I saw the importance of really making that concerted effort to build bonds of fraternity with other priests. And so it's something that I appreciated when I was a younger priest. And so now in my position, I'm able to help to create those for the priests of the diocese.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. What about in your parish? You must see people in all different phases of life, struggling with many, many different things.
Yes.
How's your formation sort of helped you to walk with people in the different aspects of their lives that they're going through?
Well, the exposure to moral theology, which I got at Santa Croce, which was my second cycle course of study, really what I described moral theology to people after taking some classes was, it's really the art of Christian living. What does it mean practically to follow Jesus Christ in my life and to put his teachings into action? And not only to do that, but to really realize that's the way to real joy and happiness. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't understand about Christian teaching, especially about moral theology. But like I said, the way that it was taught at Santa Croce was really seeing, this is the path to freedom, this is the pathway to happiness. And so, across all different stages and all different conditions of life, the Lord has something to say to us, and the Lord has a way to lead us closer to him. Yeah. And so whether people at kind of one of those kairos moments, a time of loss, a time of great joy, or whether it's just people living their normal life, that it's something where the education in moral theology I got at Santa Croce is something I bring into my ministry, countless times throughout the day. Yeah. And not just the different facts that I learned, but also the attitude, the spirit that moral theology was presented to us by the faculty at Santa Croce.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. Having a school must be interesting. Children can sometimes be the mouthpiece of the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about some of the experiences that you've had with the kids and some of the if there's any interesting anecdotes that you've heard from them, maybe you can share.
Yeah, well, so every year I teach the 8th graders one period a week, and we do a seminar.
Okay.
And it actually turns out to be a lot of philosophy, and then kind of starts to lead into theology, but it's about really being able to think and reason in a way that faith has a strong foundation on which to build. And so, I really enjoy doing that, to at least expose them to thinkers such as, Plato, Aristotle.
Yeah.
A little more modern, we do Viktor Frankl. We just finished up a couple of weeks ago with going through a children's version of Antigone by Sophocles.
Oh, wow.
And so, like I said, really just to, give their future practice of the faith a strong foundation on which to build.
Oh, that's great.
And so that's something I enjoy doing. So lots of things there. But actually, so a week ago we went up to a theme park, Six Flags, out in Western Massachusetts. And a couple of years ago we had another class, and I was with a couple of our students waiting in line for one of the rides. And they saw a place they were able to cut in line, and they looked at me and said, "Hey, let's just cut." And I didn't tell them no. Instead, I just said, "Would that be the right thing to do?" And they kind of gave me a puss face, but then they said it again. They said, "No, it'll save us 15 minutes." And I just said, "Guys, you can do it if you want, but is it the right thing to do?" And again, I got puss face, but they stayed where they were in line. And so again, just that idea of morality, but inviting. And again, that's how it was always taught at Santa Croce. It wasn't this law being imposed. It was rather evoking the best from the call of the Lord from within, like helping to hear the voice of the Lord in our conscience and respond to it. And so that is just kind of one little anecdote that I think shows moral theology in action.
Yeah, that's amazing. The it's a real gift. I mean, as a father, I get to see those light bulbs go off once in a while.
Yeah.
But having charge of the school, I mean, and especially teaching one class a week, I'm sure you get to see that quite often, especially a seminar like that.
Yeah,
that's really great.
Well, I like it because it's more dialogical, and it's a chance to really help them to see them reason in real time, not just me telling them stuff, but to be able to go back and forth and help and kind of see them thinking about it and coming to the realization on their own, rather than me just telling them what to think.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's really cool. Most people only see their pastor on Sunday, at Mass. What are some of the other aspects maybe that people might be surprised to hear that you do during the week, as a pastor? Things that you get to do or things that you're tasked with?
Sure. I mean, being a parish priest, you see the whole range of human existence. So for example, today I had Mass in the parish, Mass at school. I'm with you right now. After this, I'm going to go visit a shut-in who wanted to join the parish. I'm also I'm the local dean as well, so I have to go check the sacramental registers at a local parish. Then at noontime, I have a meeting back here with someone who wants to be a sponsor. And then I have a meeting with someone who wants to receive confirmation. And then I'll be back at the school, and then this afternoon I'll be getting ready for a parish council meeting. I have a couple other things, but I have to check my calendar for what it is. But so it's really, like I said, so it's it's seeing people at the end of their lives, being with the kids at the beginning of their lives. It's really the whole range of human existence, which I like, because it's every day is going to be different.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What about you were a chaplain in a jail.
Yes, that too.
That's one moment in life when people are definitely a little more open to the Holy Spirit maybe and the message of Christ. What was that like?
So I really got into it during the Year of Mercy. I was at a parish which was near to the local jail on Cape Cod. And one of the acts of mercy is, of course, visit the imprisoned. And so I had the religious ed students write letters of affirmation for prisoners who would be on a retreat. And they told me there was no priest going in, and so I offered to come in once a week and make visits. And so it's powerful, not only because you see that initial moment of conversion with some of the inmates, but also it's sustaining it. And because, okay, they have that initial moment of conversion, but then 6 months later, it can waver a little bit. And so it's been a joy for me, and it's not just me alone. We have a wonderful team of lay people who go in there every week as well and run retreats and have prayer meetings. And so really all of us working together there to not only help them in those initial moments of conversion or sometimes reversion, but also in sustaining that and encouraging them to form a community with the other inmates who have that spiritual interest like them, and really to sustain each other and build up each other in realizing, again, the freedom that Christ offers us by following Him.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges that you faced in there?
I mean, challenges, it's, like I said, it's dealing with people in situations whose, I'll tell them, I don't have the words to give to you right now. And, there was someone who was in jail and his girlfriend had just overdosed on drugs and died. And he was, in jail, couldn't get out. And and again, it's just a broken situation, but I've gotten more comfortable with saying that there's, if I had the words to make your pain go away, I'd give them to you, but I don't. And I said, this is where you have to turn to the Lord. And so I'll pray with them, and it's in that silence is where you encounter the Lord. And so to really, if the best I can do is point them to the Lord, that's the most important thing I can do, right? Just get out of the way myself and just point them to the one who can really give them the consolation that they need right then.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What about in family life, the domestic church? How has that changed over the last 10 years ago you've been ordained?
Yes, yeah. So if I've been ordained 50 years, I see massive changes. In the last 10 years, I've noticed the lack of understanding of what the sacrament of marriage offers people, or even that marriage period offers people. And so, going back to Santa Croce, the education I received in moral theology about family life has been so wonderful in helping to not only prepare married couples, but I've started teaching our confirmation students about marriage in the church. Because again, I think up until now it's just been assumed, people know to get married, but we're probably a decade or two beyond that just being part of the culture.
Right.
And so the importance of teaching about marriage to students in middle and high school has become something more and more important. And so I think that's it, realizing that, the old way of thinking is obsolete now. And so what we have to do is really start to build up the culture from the beginning. And so, but I think then having, what's the vision of marriage and family life that we have to offer people, and why is it good? And I think that's so important for us to really be able to realize and enunciate now.
Yeah, I mean, just I remember, while I was at Steubenville, I didn't grow up with a father in our house, and having just the experience of my other classmates who had a mom and a dad at home, and being raised by a father, and how different that was from my own experience, and it really was eye-opening for me, especially meeting some of these larger, kids that came from a family of 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, and from different parts of the country, not just the East Coast, and it really had a huge impact on me, sort of going forward, and understanding that I really needed to, if I wanted to be a married man, I had to, spend time with married couples and understand what that was, and how you get through an argument, and all the little
communication, right? Communication is everything.
Kids learn, as they're just growing up, but that's really interesting, because I think that there really has been such a tremendous change in our culture over the last 20 years that young people now, in their 20s, 30s, they're not even thinking about getting married.
Right.
And they have no idea that that's, something that would bring, a lot of joy and stability, and, the beauty of children and all that kind of thing to their lives.
Yeah, I mean, it's good for them, but also it's so needed for society.
So, what is one experience from Santa Croce that really shaped your pastoral ministry here?
I mean, there's a lot, but one of the ones that stands out in my mind first is comes from my second year there. So I was a newly ordained priest. I had gone back to finish up my license. And during the weekends, about 1 weekend a month, I would help out at a local American military base with chaplaincy work. And a pastoral situation came up there that I wasn't quite sure how to deal with. And so, I was taking class in moral theology at the time at Santa Croce. Yeah. And after class, I asked the teacher, Father Rodriguez Luño, just could I ask you a question about just ministry? And right away, he gave me his full attention. I was able to ask him the question. He helped me to really understand, okay, here's the pastoral response, here's how you do that. And so I've told other people it was really a great place to be for my first year of priesthood, because Santa Croce is more than just a university, it's really a community. And it was a little bit smaller than some of the other universities, but because of that, I feel the professors knew us a little bit better as individuals, especially if we had them for multiple classes. And so, like I said, that was something that just, it showed me not only about moral theology, but just, how a priest is. Like I said, he really showed me what it is to have the care of souls. And so that really sticks out for me, and it's something that still stays with me in my ministry today.
That's great.
Yeah.
What about studying Rome? I mean, obviously you spent a little time there before that, but how did that affect sort of your view of the church overall, and affect your formation or play a role?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think first, the academic culture in Rome is a great place to be to study, because they're, it's centuries old. Yeah. And so to be there, to be with so many serious scholars, it really was something that gave me, great models to follow, and really the impetus to take my studies seriously, which I'm, really getting into the books didn't come as easily for me as some other people. So having that rigorous academic culture, which is certainly present at Santa Croce. Santa Croce is actually known in Rome for having a rigorous academic culture. So it was good to be there for that, and I benefited from that. But then also you get a sense for the worldwide church. Living at the North American College, I was able to see the national church in the way that I never would have had I gone to a regional seminary here in the U.S., which are also great, don't get me wrong. But it gave me just, again, that additional perspective. But then studying at Santa Croce and being with people from around the world. And, especially one thing I think about is having the opportunity to study with so many students from Africa. And there's a part of the world that I really wasn't familiar with personally before then. But being able to study with them, and especially just, whenever I read about the heroic witness of the church and African Christians in Africa now, and especially in Nigeria, where, almost daily you hear about Christians suffering for their faith. And honestly, I think sometimes, are some of the priests who are suffering, were they in class with me? And so, again, studying at Santa Croce gives me that additional personal perspective on the situation of the church around the world that otherwise I wouldn't have. And it's made me much more sensitive and much more aware in a way that I wouldn't be had I not studied there.
Yeah, it really is. It really brings it home, And well, growing up in New York, we often had priests from Nigeria. I actually knew a couple of sisters, parish visitors of Mary Immaculate, who were from Nigeria as well. And it really, but to meet a young seminarian when I was there this past June, and talk with him about his experience and growing up there was really eye-opening for me. What about why did you choose Santa Croce as opposed to one of the other universities in Rome? I know you did your first theology there, but at the Greg.
I didn't choose Santa Croce, and actually, so it's kind of a funny story. So I met with our former bishop, who's since passed away. And I remember meeting with him in his sitting room, and I went in and he said, well, it's time to choose second cycle. And I said, Bishop, I'd love to study church history. He said, that's nice, but we need someone to study moral theology. I said, okay, and I mentioned another university that I'd heard good things about, because I knew Santa Croce was rigorous, like I said. And he said, well, okay, that's nice, but there's a really great university called Santa Croce, and his papers right here, and he brought it over to me. And I knew the guys who had gone there. They had a great experience, but like I said, I knew it was a rigorous program of studies. And so I said, yes, Bishop. And I went with it. But I'm glad that I did. I'm glad he picked it for me, that I never would have picked for myself. And like I said, it was just really a great experience, and I haven't looked back since.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
We're in a house right beside the schoolyard. So if you hear the school kids, they're out there today. Today was their last school mass, and I guess school gets out this Friday.
This following Tuesday.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Tuesday. Yeah, which is great. I remember, I'm sure you remember as a kid getting out of school
summer
for the
vacation,
summer.
yeah. And you can hear it that they're ready to get on
They're ready
vacation.
to go.
Too. Yeah.
So why did the bishop ask you to study moral theology?
Well, the reason he gave me was that a moral theology teacher was needed for our permanent diaconate formation program. And so every 4 years I have taught our candidates for the permanent diaconate a course on moral theology. And it's really been wonderful. And I kind of think of it that, my time at Santa Croce and the great experience I had there is something I can now share with the deacons who are going to be bringing this teaching into their own ministry. And it's been great because, like I said, not just the information I'm able to share with them, which is basically, all from the classes I had at Santa Croce, but the importance of knowing moral theology. And like I said, what's the attitude with which we approach teaching morality? That it's not simply a law imposed from outside, but it's rather, evoking the truth that's been planted in our hearts and in our consciences and being able to hear that voice.
Yeah.
And so, and that's almost as important to teach the candidates as the facts themselves, because I say in ministry, it's not just teaching people facts, but it's helping them to realize the importance of following this and really, the joy of following Christ. This isn't something to grimly accept the imposition of on our lives, but rather to see, okay, this is something that's good, this is a gift for me. And helping these candidates to really understand that. And so a month ago I finished up teaching my 3rd class, and so it's been really joyful to not only prepare these men for their ministry, but also, hear from them how my classes help to benefit them as they preach and as they bring, teaching morality and living morality into their ministry. But again, knowing for me, it all goes back to my experience at Santa Croce.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I first read, I'm totally paraphrasing here, but in Splendor of Truth by John Paul II, and he talks about, the 10 Commandments are not a set of rules to ruin your fun or something like that, but guidelines for a full and joyful life. And that hit me. I think I read it while we were in Austria.
Oh, right, yeah.
It hit me like a ton of bricks, and it was just like, it's not restrictive, but we're here living, our best life, for the best reasons, and that's beautiful that you're bringing that to the deacons.
Yeah, and that's been a joy for me to be able to, like I said, kind of prepare them, but I tell them, okay, you're the ones who are entrusted with this now to bring it to your own ministry. And so, like I said, through me, dozens of deacons have been prepared and brought it to their own parishes, but again, it all goes back to Santa Croce.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to checking in with you in another 10 or 15 years.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully before then, right?
Hopefully before then, but maybe you'll be, rector of a seminary or bishop of some diocese somewhere.
I know, hopefully just pastor of a parish. And that's where, that's where the souls are, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So what was the first thing that stood out to you about Santa Croce when you arrived there?
I'd say the tone. There was a joyful seriousness, or a serious joyfulness. I guess that's the way to do it. That, the priests there just had a real sense of purpose about what they were doing. And, the class sizes were smaller than I had been used to, which was nice. And so it had much more of a community feel. But it really is, community is part of it, because it wasn't just a place where I went to for class. There was the chapel. As a priest, my 2nd year there, I was able to celebrate Mass with the provision for that. So in addition to the academic offerings, I could tell that they really took our spiritual lives seriously. And that was something that really struck me, that they wanted to make it easy for us to pray, easy for us to celebrate Mass. And so there was, beauty for that.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I've heard that from a couple of other alums as well, and it's it really is something that I think really embodies, Santa Croce, that spirit of apostolate of friendship that St. Josemaria really talked about a lot. What about the professors? You talked about one of your professors there. What about the other professors and your fellow classmates? What kind of impact did they have on your life?
Okay, well, I think about, I call him Father Schlag, Monsignor Schlag. I never went by Monsignor. But he did such a wonderful job at both introducing me to moral theology. He taught the intro course, but he was also the reader for my Tessina.
Okay.
And so just working with him on that and having his guidance, and also like I said, kind of just that experience of working with him on that was really great for me, because I wrote on undocumented migration, which in 2012 was a topical issue. It's even more so of one now.
Yeah.
And the way he was able to, like I said, kind of guide me, give me pointers on how to explore the topic was incredibly helpful. And again, it's taking the theory of theology and then showing me how to put it into practice, and not taking away of anything of the truth of what Christ teaches or what the church teaches, but showing, okay, how does it practically apply was great. And then, I think also of Father Bob Gall was great. Yeah, and like I said, just wonderful
He's still
guy.
over there.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. Yeah, and his classes as well, and so many others. A lot of the priests I only had for one class, but like I said, all of them, just the overall experience was powerful. But I think also of one day, I think it was my Tuesdays, and I had 2 periods of moral issues dealing with the beginning of life, pregnancy issues, and then 2 periods dealing on a class of end of life issues.
Oh, wow.
And I just remember, learning about these things and walking back to the seminary for lunch, just like my head was spinning, just about thinking about, the real difficulties and the sufferings that people go through.
Yeah.
But now in my pastoral ministry, I'm dealing with people who have to live with these things.
Yeah.
And actually, at one point when I was in a hospital, they needed me to come in for an ethics review, and I was able to lead the family to, in making the right decision or helping them to realize what the range of possible decisions could be that they didn't realize.
Yeah.
And again, it went right back to my moral theology education at Santa Croce that helped me to decide, family making a decision about an end of life issue. And again, that class that, like I said, really weighed me down when I was taking it, but now in ministry, I was able to put it into practice.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
We don't think often about these huge decisions that people have to make. I mean, I think they're more and more common now with the sort of broadening scope of euthanasia, pro-euthanasia laws, and abortion across the country. But people really do have to, think about it, because sometimes there's these very fine lines, right? Where
exactly,
an ectopic pregnancy, or or someone who's lost full function, to do anything for themselves, and we're not even sure if there's any brain functions,
Right.
And these really sort of delicate issues that we have to really seek out what the church teaches, and what's morally right in each one of those situations.
Yeah, what does the dignity of our life call for?
Yeah. Well, what did you do for fun in Rome?
Oh, so I mean, what I really enjoyed doing, I've always liked history. That's why I wanted to study church history.
Okay.
And so to be in Rome and liking history is like being a kid in a candy
That's
shop.
right.
So traveling, kind of exploring the different things, and going to some of the small towns outside the city, even where I kind of would joke, a pile of rocks in a field could keep me entertained for half a day. So I really like doing that, but learning the stories behind it too, and learning the history of what happened there. Yeah. But also it was things would get busy, and it was very good preparation for pastoral ministry, because a lot of days I'd have class till noontime, and then lunch. Then we were quote unquote free. But before you knew it, you'd be busy till 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Between studying apostolate.
Yeah.
My 5th year, I had 5 or 6 different apostolates, some of which were weekly, some of which were monthly. But it was, it was busy with good preparation for here.
Yeah.
Where, like I said, I'm going to be all around the city today.
Yeah.
And it was great preparation for real pastoral ministry.
Prep for the real world.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, great. Well, what would you say to somebody maybe who was interested in supporting another student going to Santa Croce?
Well, having taken classes with so many students who were there because of previous generous benefactors, I'd say it's a wonderful experience. And like I said, I think about what I've been able to bring to my ministry because of my education and experience at Santa Croce. And, we're here in the United States where we have so much at our disposal. Whereas especially someone who comes from a place with, you know, less means or less at their disposal, what that experience at Santa Croce means for them, not only in the knowledge they gain, but also in the experience of church that they gain. You know, that wonderful faithfulness, in, you know, the joy of following Christ, the kind of the discipline of prayer. Like I said, so many things I got there just from the culture of the university that's helped to give me a seriousness of purpose that I live in my own personal spiritual life, but also in my ministry, and thinking that, you know, for everyone who goes to Santa Croce to have that experience that they can bring back to their own home places as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I have your thesis here, which you were kind enough to bring towards a moral evaluation of undocumented migration. Can you tell me a little bit about this? I mean,
sure. Well, in one of my summer assignments as a seminarian, I was in a bilingual parish, and I was able to speak to migrants from Central America, you know, some of whom were documented, some of whom weren't. But really to hear from them, what are their situations? Why did they have to come north and come to the U.S. despite the challenges that it brought? Remember, this was, you know, 2008, 2009, 2010, that time frame.
Yes.
And it really gave me an insight into an experience that before then I hadn't learned. And so when I started studying moral theology, I thought, well, I'd like to do a topic that would bear on my pastoral ministry. And so again, you know, Father Schlag was great. He said, okay, I'll work with you on this. And I was able to do this. And, you know, back in 2011, 2012, this was a topical issue, and even more so now. And being able to study it in depth and kind of reason through these things has been so helpful, because it really is such a sensitive issue. And to be able to, you know, even preach on it, as I did last October, and people actually said I was able to effectively cover both sides of the issue because I had the chance to really go into it in depth during my studies at Santa Croce. And so that's what I mean, being able to go deep into the theory, but also translate it into the lived experience was, you know, it's just one example of the modeling of moral theology that I saw at Santa Croce that I was able to do for my own ministry here. And as I said, be able to speak about it in an intelligent manner. And like I said, it is so sensitive and such a sensitive topic, unpoliticized topic, but be able to show again that the church doesn't fall into the easy dichotomy we see so often, but really is able to see both sides of the issue and, you know, offer something to help us to reason through that.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And again, so I'm grateful to Santa Croce for giving me the opportunity to really study that and research it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Can I have this?
That's my only copy.
Oh, no.
I'll send you an email.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to read it. Any final words that you like to share with our listeners before we part?
Well, you know, like I said a few minutes ago, Santa Croce was not a place that I picked for myself, that it was chosen for me, but I'm so glad that I went there. Like I said, not just because of the great education that I received there, like I said, not just the truth of what Christ teaches, but also how to put it practically into practice in a pastorally understanding way, but also just the overall community experience. Like I said, the joyfulness there, and the integration of the spiritual life into the university life. And so, like I said, it was really, how do you live a complete life as a Christian, was what was modeled for us at Santa Croce, and something that's continued to sustain me in my life as a priest.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Father Riley, for taking the time and inviting me here. And
I'm so glad you could join us and see a little bit of what a Santa Croce graduate's life is like in ministry.
It was great. It was great. Yeah. Great to catch up with you.
Great. Yeah. Great to catch up with you too. Take care.